Hi, this is Father Panagiotis. For this week's pastoral reflection, I'd like to look at the life of Saint Mary of Egypt, and specifically how she spent her time when she was prevented from worshiping in the church with her community of Christians. As we are all staying home and isolating ourselves for our own health and for the health of those around us, we're prevented from gathering together as a community of Christians to do the things that make us who we are, to stand side by side and to pray with one another in our church, to receive Holy Communion, to celebrate the Divine Liturgy. Yes, we're able to pray in our homes, but even this is not exactly what we're called to do. We're called to be in each other's presence, to gather in the church, and to offer prayer with one voice, side by side. We're prevented from doing that right now, and as we'll see in the life of St. Mary, so was she for a time. St. Mary grew up in Alexandria, Egypt. She lived a life at that time of great sin, and ultimately, after years and years of sinful living in Alexandria, decided to leave that city and boarded a boat to go to Jerusalem. She was going because many in Alexandria at the time were traveling there, and many from all over the Mediterranean world were also traveling for the feast of the celebration and exaltation of the Holy Cross. And so that city would be teeming with new people, and she could start a new life there with new suitors and continue her old way of living in a city that was foreign and new to her. As she approached the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is where the crowds were going, she was prevented from going into the church, not by a guard or by priests or by anybody else, but by an invisible and mystical force. She got to the doors and they were open, and other people passed by and entered into the church and celebrated liturgy, but she was unable. Try as she could, she wasn't able to enter into the church. She was blocked. She was prevented, not of her own will, but by the will of God, actually. And so she left and went out into the courtyard and saw an icon of the Virgin Mary. And in that icon, she recognized her exact opposite, a woman who is pure and chaste. And so, being barred from entering the church, St. Mary didn't turn to leave. She turned to pray. She could have easily made an excuse that the church is not for me. Clearly, Christ doesn't want me there. And so, I'm being oppressed. I'm being thrown out. I'm being cast off. And she could have responded with resentment. She could have left, never to return to the church, and continued on the exact same life that she had before. But she decided in that moment, being barred from entering the church, against her own will, that she would not live the way that she had up until that point. Her prayer was that God forgive her, and that she be able to enter the church to start a new life. In fact, it was being barred and prevented from entering the church that caused her to take a step back and look at her life and notice the changes that needed to be made. And so, right now, as we're prevented from entering the church, perhaps we can take St. Mary as an example. That while we want to be together in the community, that we want to enter into the doors of the church to celebrate the Divine Liturgy, that our lives might need to change, that there are things about the way in which we live that right now need to be different. St. Mary used that time to pray, to repent, and to ask for forgiveness, and to make one important decision, that after that moment, her life would never be the same. In that one instance, God forgave her, and she turned around and entered the church. She was only prevented from going into the church for a short period of time, and for us it might be longer. But that decision that she made, it's the most important decision that she ever made. For us, as we're prevented from gathering together, my question is, what decisions will we make? Will we make decisions that draw us closer into the church? Will we establish habits now while we're not in church that will benefit us long after? Most importantly, what will our lives look like? when the world is once again healthy and safe, when we can gather together in our churches? Will we be the same people? Will we have the same respect for the church? Will we have the same dedication? Saint Mary was prevented from entering the church, and after that, she lived a life of complete and total dedication to Christ. I pray and hope that, like Saint Mary, as we are barred from gathering together against our will, we will use this time to make one important decision. That when the doors of the churches open again, our lives will never be the same. That they will be, from that point on, completely dedicated to Christ, to prayer, and to His glory. Amen.